from an overall experience that the Winx Club was meant to be for everyone, that's where everyone's hearts were. It's like, how do we
Yeah.
make this the best experience for the kids watching it? Hey there. Welcome to the Winx Forever podcast. Join creator, host, and lifelong Winx fan Lola Valentine as she invites you to take a deep dive into the very cool universe of Winx Club. So whether you've been a Winx fan since 2004, or you vaguely remember the show from your childhood, or even if you're being introduced to it for the first time, welcome. This is the Winx Forever podcast.
Hello, fairy friends. Welcome back to the Winx Forever podcast. As always, I am your fairy loving host, Lola Valentine. If you have been following the show for a while, you know that I am American. I grew up in America with the first American English dub of the Winx Club series, known as the 4Kids dub. I've had the privilege on this show of sharing why this dub is so special to me and to so many other, not only American Winxers, but other Winx Club fans around the world that grew up with this dub. So today I get the great privilege to share this episode with you because I have joining me Anthony Salerno, the voice director of the 4Kids English dub of Winx Club. Anthony, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on, sharing your time with us.
Thank you, Lola. Thank you. I'm super pumped for this. I'm very excited. Winx Club was the epitome of my experience as a voice director. It was my favorite show that I ever worked on. Out of the many years I spent dubbing the many different types of media, the cast was incredible. The writing for that type of work was great, and it was just, I wish it had been my final act as a voice director, just to leave with something so amazing.
Yeah.
But it was such a pleasure. So I'm very honored and grateful to be on your podcast. This is so sweet and exciting. Thank you.
Yes, of course, of course. I was so just honored to even get a chance to speak with you about this show that means so much to not only me and little Lola, but so many other fans across the world that grew up with this dub specifically. It's just so unique, and it's probably one of the most unique dubs that we have of Winx Club in the franchise. So I'm excited to dive into all of that with you. But I'd love to give our listeners a chance to get to know you and kind of your professional history a little bit. So let's just dive in.
Sure. Okay. The story of Anthony Salerno. Rated
Yes.
R. No.
Oh no.
Here we go. No, we'll work on that. Well, I started off as basically a kid who wanted to make movies. I grew up in the 80s. I grew up in the Stranger Things era, 100%. Like that show was literally about me and my friends. I mean, I was right there, that age at that time. So, just obsessed with Steven Spielberg and all that kind of stuff, and just wanted to just get into basically some sort of storytelling media.
Yeah.
I went to Rutgers University. I studied at Mason Gross there, the acting conservatory. And from there, I went into, like most actors do, I didn't go into acting after I left acting school. I went into basically working at an advertising agency for industrial blenders. Oh, it was super exciting. Yeah, I know. I know you're speechless right now. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around the amazingness of that. But
we all got to start somewhere,
Oh yeah. And that was, that was a job I kind of lied my way into in terms of
Okay.
knowing how to edit, because I really didn't. That was back in the day when I would just use like 2 VCRs with a buddy of mine, with actually my buddy who plays Yu-Gi-Oh. We went to
Dan
college
Green?
together. Dan Green, yes, me and Dan Green. And
Dan
also,
himself? Oh
yes,
man.
and also Greg Abbey, who is a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. We were roommates. We met in college. We're still buddies. We actually just went down to Rutgers a couple of years ago for a 30-year kind of walk around and be
Wow.
like, oh my God, can you
Wow.
believe when we were little bumpkins running around? What a life. It was, yeah. So anyway, I stumbled into this job, and I always trying to like make little narrative projects with my friends, some of whom I just mentioned, on the side, and always dreaming of bigger things. And eventually I saw an ad for an anime company in New York City called Central
Okay.
Park Media.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I can do this. Sure, why not? So I went in, I applied for the job. There was a math test to get this job. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, there was a math test. And immediately I'm like, okay,
We're
well,
talking like
obviously I'm
long
getting this job.
division? Like what kind
Yeah,
of math?
for real. Yeah, they were like, if you get on a train that's actually not a train, but heading for a group of people, but the group of people is your family, would you get off the train, or would you blast right through them? And if so, how fast? It was just a lot of, well, it was unexpected, needless to say. But anyway,
Incredible.
I passed the test apparently,
All right.
and got hired at Central Park Media around 1996. That's right, kids. That year was real. And I began my probably decade and a half. Oh, even still, I'm still involved in it. Decades long relationship with voiceover industry, with anime, with animation in general. So Central Park Media was like pretty much right at the start of bringing anime into the United States.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, they brought a lot of nowadays, there are a lot of people probably wouldn't hear or remember what it was, or there were some things like Toshinden. Some people remember that from the video game. There was
Yeah.
there was a dub of that which was kind of popular, but there were just dozens and dozens and dozens of anime, and they also had
Yeah.
their very infamous Anime 18,
Oh,
which
yes.
was, yeah, that was really dark stuff. But it had a crazy following, and it had like there was a story in the New York Times about it. So it's suddenly, everybody knew about this place and
Yeah.
anime. And there is where I began to meet and actually cast a lot of the actors for their first roles in anime and voiceover dubbing, who would go on to be Yu-Gi-Oh! And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Pokemon and all of that. Like, it was an exciting, fun, weird time because none of us knew what any of this stuff was, and we were all just like in our late 20s, so we're all just goofy and having fun and being stupid.
I love it.
So yeah, and then eventually that led to working at another studio called Taj Productions.
Okay.
And there I dubbed a lot of still just direct to video stuff. Captain Taylor, Utena was another one that was kind of sort of popular. Slayers was a big series that went on for a while, but it was all direct to video, so there's no way to really kind of tell do people like this? Is anyone watching this? I don't know.
Right.
But again, I was essentially pulling in all of my friends and their friends who were all actors and all really super talented into this voiceover industry that was growing and growing and growing in New York City. And then one day I'm working at Taj, and I'm at home, and the owner calls me up and says, "Hey, Tony, I'm gonna send you a videotape. We got this videotape from Japan, and I just want you to look at it and tell me what you think of it. And maybe is it something we should do or not?" And I was like, "Okay, all right, send it over, Larry. Let me see." So a couple days later, this videotape, VHS, people, this VHS arrives at my home, and I pop it in, and it's these kids dressed in really kind of bright, goofy colors and goofy outfits, holding these red and white balls and throwing them at each other, and they're exploding into animals, and they're all just yelling at each other, like yelling at each other. And I'm watching this, and I was just kind of like, okay, this is weird. And and this goes to show like how razor sharp my instincts are. I thought it was terrible, and I saw this, and I talked to the Larry, who was the owner, Larry Juris, who was the owner of Taj. I was like, he's like, "So what do you think? What do you think, Tony? What do you think of the show?" And I said, "It's horrible, man. It's horrible." I said, "This is like cockfighting or something. Like, I don't know what this is. Like, we can't do this, man." And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. It's really popular, and anyway, they've offered it to us, so we're gonna do it." And I was like, "Oh, all right." So my opinion didn't matter anyway, but okay, let's do it. cool. I mean, it wasn't up to me anyway. He just wanted to get my
Right.
take on it.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was Pokemon. And,
Yeah.
obviously that became something. And we started doing that. I wasn't really directly involved in that until like the later season, like 2 or 3.
Okay.
There were like 3 different directors that they had working at that studio.
Yeah.
So there was one main director who was Jim Malone, and then there were 2 other directors, me and another guy. And we would all kind of like pinch hit for each other and jump in and out. So I was in and out of Pokemon directing for a couple of years, the first few seasons.
Yeah.
Um, I can't even keep track of how many characters I probably played in those first seasons, because we were like, okay, we need
Right.
this guy, we need this girl, we need this
You just
creature, we
kind
need
of
that thing. We just, okay, I'll fill it in. And and voiceover acting, very much as you learn to discover, is basically about allowing your schizophrenia to come out and just say hello to everybody, because you are literally
absolutely.
multiple personalities, like
Oh man.
24/7. It's nuts. Your voice is worn out by the end of the day. But yeah, then it went from Pokemon, and then they had the show Cubix that came on, and Alan Kingsburg, who was the producer of the Winx Club, eventually he was producing this show, and he essentially stole me from Taj Productions. He just
Of
said, "Hey,
course.
we want you to come over to this company. It's 4 kids. Will you come over and direct?" Although actually, I've got it wrong. No, we were doing Cubix at Taj, and then it switched, I
Oh,
think, over to 4 kids. I can't remember
yeah.
exactly, but around that time, I kind of got recruited into 4 kids, which, for me was pretty awesome, because we were going
Yeah.
from, I mean, Pokemon was cool. It was on TV. We're realizing like, wow, okay, this stuff is becoming like a real thing. It's not all this direct to
Yeah.
video stuff that nobody really knows unless they're super fans. So then from Cubix, then there was this other show that Alan had gotten, and it was the Winx Club. And he was like, I want you to, would you be interested? And I watched it, and I was like, this is really kind of cool. And I like the animation. I loved that it wasn't
Oh.
anime. I loved that it wasn't anime. I was so psyched to not do anime. No offense to all the anime fans. Anime is super cool. But let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you something. When you do it 40 hours a week for like 7 years straight, after a while, you're just like, I just don't want to look at anime anymore. I don't want to look at big shivering eyes anymore. I just want to see something else.
Oh, you don't want to yell anymore.
Oh my God, no. I mean, talk about the dubbing, like everything in so much in Japanese ends in a vowel, and so much in our language, in English, ends in consonants. And it was just
Mm-hmm.
so hard to make that real, but whatever. Anyway, so then, yeah, there was this thing called the Winx Club. And just like every show that I worked on, I'd get a tape of the original episode that we were going to be
Yeah.
dubbing, and I took a look at it, and I'm like, this is fun. This is really exciting. And I really also loved that it was an all-girl cast, because there wasn't a lot of that going on with
Yeah.
shows like that at the time. And they were all interesting characters. They were all diverse in their own way. I thought it was really creative
Oh
in
yeah.
terms of the storytelling. I mean, nothing is really original anymore, but anyway, I don't want to, I'm going to ramble, so I'll stop. But that's how I landed at the Winx Club,
Oh,
from a wee boy to, the director, the voice
I
director of the show.
I love that. I love that so much. And to your point, yeah, like Eugenio Straffi, the creator of Winx
Mhm.
Club, he saw that void in children's cartoons and, said like there's not a lot. I mean, what did we have? We had Sailor Moon. That was it, The
Right.
fact that it got brought to America and that in very capable hands, might I add,
Mhm.
like it's just incredible. And yeah, it was the thing that woke me up every Saturday morning at
No.
7 a.m., like to go
Wow.
watch it.
That was on at
Uh,
7?
yes.
Holy cow.
For a lot of Saturdays.
Wow.
They
Wow.
they would eventually, as 4 kids got more like female driven like
Mhm.
properties, they did like have like like they would call it like girl power hour or whatever. And it was like Mew Mew Power, Winx Club, Bratz, all of
Right,
those
right. I
together.
think I
Magical
worked
Do
on
Re
Mew Mew
Mi.
too. Yeah, I did Do Re Mi too. I directed that for
Do Re Mi
whatever.
was so fun. Oh my God, I
Oh
loved
yeah,
it.
but that broke my heart, because that's what I got bumped. I got bumped off of the Winx Club to start
No.
Do Re Mi,
Ah,
because I guess it's a compliment, because it was,
right.
again, Alan Kingsburg. No, actually, this was produced by Jim Malone, who
Oh
was
wow.
uh, one of the directors I mentioned earlier of Pokemon,
Mm-hmm.
the main director of Pokemon.
Yeah.
So it was an honor in the sense of like, hey, Tony, we trust you to kind of help
Right.
kickstart this new show, and it was super
Absolutely.
fun. But that was
Yeah.
also the beginnings of the slowing down of Four
Four
Kids.
kids. It
You
was
know, that was
so
kind of like,
tragic.
yeah,
Ugh.
it was a bummer. It was a bummer when
Yeah.
suddenly everyone started getting laid off, and
Oh, I can imagine.
that was just a magical time for actors and artists and directors to be able to go
Yeah.
to this place where, I mean, Four Kids was buzzing. There were like, you know,
Oh my
I forget
gosh.
how many, 5 studios, maybe 7 studios. I think it was 5 that
Mhm.
were going all day, and
Yeah.
all different shows being recorded. And
Uh,
everyone would be like, "Hey, how you doing? Hey, what show are you on? What show are you on?" And
yeah.
then we'd meet for
Yeah.
lunch and do stuff. And
Uh,
it was just this incredible hub
yeah.
of joy and fun and inspiration and work
Right.
for everybody, and the pay was great.
Yeah.
So it was definitely a sad thing when it started to wind
Oh.
down.
Oh yeah. I mean, and not just yeah, I mean, I can imagine for yeah, the company, the employees, but also for the fans. I remember it kind of slowing down and when the Four Kids dub announced that season 3 was it for Winx Club,
Hmm.
I was distraught. I was heartbroken.
Oh,
I was
oh
forming petitions online to save it.
no.
Which I'll never do again because once I did that, I was like, oh no, bring Winx Club back to America. They came out with the Nick dub, and I was like, this is not what I wanted.
Yeah, no, I know that's a whole other. I mean,
That's a
that's the business behind it all, which, you know, we were
right.
all very we were, how do I say this? We were very aware of it, but we very
Right.
much kind of had our blinders on to it at the same time,
Yeah.
because that's
Yeah.
what drove shows was,
Yeah.
you know, how much is it selling?
Mm.
What's the
Still
response? What,
does.
yeah, I know. And it's
Yeah.
what's the, you know, what's the health of the company, the fiscal health of
Yeah.
the company, and da da da, like things that have nothing to do with the quality of the writing, quality of the acting,
Hmm.
the interest in of the fans. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that was a bummer. And I definitely had a little bit of like jealousy. I was like,
Oh
somebody else
yeah.
is taking my Winx
Your
Club away from
baby.
me. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it was Chris
Yeah.
Colley, who is an amazing guy, sweetest human being on earth, a wonderful
Yeah.
person, and it was in totally capable hands. But just in
Hmm.
terms of my attachment to it, I just
Oh
felt
yeah,
like, oh,
definitely.
what do you mean I can't finish the? Well, I didn't know that was the end, but it was just kind of
Right.
a bummer.
Yeah.
But yeah, but oh, what an experience.
Yeah, it was an experience, and I say this and not lightly either, that if I grew up with any other dub of Winx Club, I don't know if I it would have stuck with me the way that the
Hmm.
Four Kids dub did.
What is it about that dub that really got to you so?
It really is the care and attention to detail, I think,
Hmm.
because the way that you guys orchestrated the dub, you took the license and you took the story and you said, this doesn't make sense here, let's put it here instead, and it just
Hmm.
makes the story, like, it can be the smallest thing. It can be just like a rearranging of like the sequence of scenes, or like
Hmm.
the way that a line is delivered, you know, just the adaptation of the script entirely, like it being kind of more Americanized,
Right.
I think was a big deal too to a lot of people, because you have the Cinelume dub that was dubbed by the Canadian dubbing company, and it just it's so it's like if Google Translate created a
That's
dub.
awesome. Oh my God.
So it's very like literal and
Right,
very, you
right.
know, it I guess it appeals to a larger audience in that way, but at the same time it just loses so much luster. And I really do enjoy the Four Kids dub for, I mean,
Mm.
obviously nostalgia reasons, obviously I'm biased, but also at the same time it's just good content.
I appreciate that you are honoring this dub. I know that there's also a lot of folks out there that like to hate on Four Kids and hate on the fact that, you know, we destroyed the original. And by the nature of licensing, that's kind of what you do in some ways when you're licensing something for another country. But anyway, having created my own personal art and things like that, I get it where, you
Mhm.
know, Eugenio, you know, you create this thing, you sell it, although I'm sure it was in his licensing agreement that it said, hey, we're going to edit this, just so you know, even though
Yeah,
he seemed to
right,
be pissed
right.
about that after. It's still, that was no, like, they didn't surprise him with that. That wasn't, he would have sued them if that were the case. It was just, no, you said it was
Right.
okay, so we're doing it.
And
um
then he was like, "Okay, I'll take your license anyway." But yes.
right, yeah, exactly, yeah, no, seriously, it's but no hit against him, because I get it. Like,
Right.
you have that, you
Yes.
create this baby, you create this thing that didn't exist in the world, that you put your
Mhm.
heart and energy and life into, and then you sell it, and then they change it. and then they still sell it as something else, and then your name is kind of still there, but it's not quite your thing anymore. It's like a Frankenstein.
Right. Yeah.
I get it from that point of view, but from where
Mm-hmm.
you're coming from and where I try to put my head sometimes, especially these days when we are
Mm-hmm.
revisiting so many old IPs,
Mm-hmm.
I try to be in a place of like, try to come to this with a fresh mind as
Yeah.
something being created now. Yeah, they're definitely leaning on the fact that it is an old IP, but they are trying to make something new. And with the
Yeah.
Winx Club, there were a lot of factors. I mean, they were literally, I mean, first of all, the Winx Club in Italy they were college girls. They weren't high
Yeah.
school girls. So there were
Mm-hmm.
certain things going on that just weren't going to fly at, 7 o'clock in the morning for kids that just had to
Right.
get cut or changed or rotoscoped or reanimated or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
there were also, I don't want to say clunky storylines, but there were things that just didn't, I mean, and again, we were editing for, not we, I actually did none of the editing, but the
The company as a
the
whole. Yeah.
company who was editing this as a whole, we're doing this again with the idea of like, we've got this amount of minutes, we have this amount of time, we have
Mm-hmm.
to,
Mm-hmm.
we also have these products being sold, so this maybe has to be pushed
Yes.
more up front. Yeah, I get it. From an art point of view, that sucks.
Yeah.
But from an overall experience that the Winx Club was meant to be for everyone, that's where everyone's hearts were. It's like, how do we
Yeah.
make this the best experience for the kids watching it? And yeah, get them psyched to buy the dolls of Bloom and Stella and Flora and
Yes.
everybody, but
Oh.
it's a fact of life with this.
We've seen this played over many times in the franchise's history now, not just with 4Kids, but now then again with Nickelodeon, and then
Mhm.
again with now even Fate the Winx Saga.
Oh my God, don't even. I mean, I felt like a grandpa when I saw that trailer. Like, oh my God, they're cursing. Oh my God, there's sex. Oh dear, oh my. I mean, I was just like, this is not my Winx. How dare they?
What a wonderful time, like reminiscing on how you got started with Winx Club. I also have a set of rapid fire questions.
Yes, I saw them and I was looking at them. I think I hope I don't annoy you with my answers because some of
No,
them.
I'm here for it.
All right, okay.
I'm here for some hot takes.
Okay.
All right, let's go. All right, so rapid fire questions with
Yes.
Anthony Salerno. Here we go. Who's your favorite Winx member?
Okay, so this is the first answer that it's going to annoy you. And there'll be more. That's like asking father who his favorite child is. I just simply
You can't.
if I had to give, if I was forced, if I was
Uh-huh.
backed into a corner or on a
Yep.
ledge and this was going to be it, I would probably say Bloom.
Okay.
Only
Yeah.
because of the amount of time that we spent together,
Mm,
both as like director and actress, and just as
yeah.
people working on the show. I would say that it would be Bloom. But I mean, I gotta say honestly, Flora is also like right up
Oh,
there because Carrie Williams, who played her, is just so perfectly, because she was just like kind of this airhead, but not like
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was just so well done. She just nailed that.
Mm.
Um, but uh, yeah, so I guess Bloom would be
Okay.
my
Okay.
favorite if I had to, which I'm not. I refuse to answer. Uh,
All right. Unofficially Bloom and also Flora,
right,
but none
right,
of them.
yes,
All of
exactly,
them.
but officially none of them. Right.
All right. Favorite Winx Club season?
Season 2, because we really found our stride
Mm.
there. It also introduced Darkar, which I loved him, only because the actor Jason Griffith, who was playing him,
Oh,
was
yes.
so he was actually at the beginning of his voiceover career,
Mm.
sort of, and he was very self-conscious about how he was coming off, and he felt like he was like sucking. He was like, "Oh God, Tony,
Oh,
I just
no.
feel like I'm overdoing it." I'm like, "No, this you're nailing it," and
Oh.
just the whole again, like I think a lot of my favorites of the characters are directly tied to like my favorite or the performances or the actors' experience
Mm-hmm.
with them, and
Yeah.
so I would say Darkar. I mean, that's season 2 because of Darkar, and that also that arc was super cool because of what
Oh.
revealed with Bloom, and it
Mm-hmm.
was it was just you just got deeper into all the characters because we were
Yeah.
kind of finding our way the first several episodes of the first season. So that's what I would say for that.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite episode that you directed? I know that's like, I mean, 78 episodes, like in 3
Yeah, no,
seasons.
it was
That's
a
a
long time
lot.
ago,
Yeah.
and they're just kind of like splashes of images
Yeah.
and moments, and we did spend a lot of time laughing while we were making this, like so much time laughing.
Oh.
Uh, I think, and because I was going over the questions earlier today, and
Mhm.
it's tied to what I just said with Dark Art, and actually in Bloom, is that I loved when she went dark
Oh,
at
yeah.
the end or near the end of season 2,
Dark
and
Bloom is great.
oh, well, it was so cool, and it was so much fun. It was so much fun for her to do that, to kind of like
Mm.
take the character who was just like this sweet and
Mhm.
earnest, really relatable person,
Yes.
and go into this really kind of like creepy, disturbed place. It was fun, so much fun to
Ah,
do, to just chew that up in the story, and for her to do it as a performer. Um, so I'd say that was probably, I don't know if that's an episode or maybe a 2-episode experience, but
yeah,
roughly
yeah,
like
yeah.
around that neck of the woods of the show is
Absolutely.
where I really loved it.
Do you have a favorite fairy transformation? Either like one of the ones that they gain in a season or like a specific fairy's like look of a transformation?
Yeah. Well, I mean, Muses was pretty cool, but Muses was cool, but but Stella's was kind of
Oh.
crazy because that one had to be edited because it was a little too risque.
Yeah, the
Uh,
the underboob.
Oh yeah, there were underboobs in that, and it was it also just like it was just like focused on a midsection for a while, and we're like,
Mhm.
whoa, we're doing it! All right, here we go, kids. So, I mean, I think maybe that might have been my favorite in terms of just how wonky
Oh.
it was behind the scenes. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Muses was neat, but I think I really loved Flora's transformation the
Mm,
best, maybe because it just had more of an organic grounding to it.
yeah.
And I don't know, I just kind of like looking at that one more than the others. So maybe I guess Flora, I'd say,
Okay.
would be my
Yeah.
favorite.
Do you have a favorite pixie?
My favorite Pixie is probably Toon,
Cute.
um, because it was played by Michael Friedman. Uh, Michael Friedman was Dan Green's wife,
Oh.
and she passed away tragically.
Oh no.
She just, I mean, she was an amazing human being, but also she just really, I hadn't worked with her really a whole lot as a voice actor. She was basically my friend's wife, and we were like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
sure. And she came in and she was like crazy good. And we're all like looking at
Oh.
each other like, oh, okay. So like you're a keeper, you're amazing. Um, and she really just shined in that part. And she
Yeah.
never, I don't think she really ever played any larger roles in the show, but she was really so wonderful in that. And
Yeah.
the voice was just so cute and adorable, and
Yes.
there was an innocence in it, but still, I mean, I don't remember the writing, but I want to say that there was like a weird little irony in her, but I might be reading into it. Um, but so yeah, I'd say Toon would be my
Yeah.
favorite Pixie.
Who was your favorite romantic couple in the Winx Club?
I think I liked Riven and Musa. They were my favorite couple, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, what you just made a lot of fans happy.
Oh, really?
That is like such a polarized, like people love it, but people hate it because it's toxic, but like people love it.
Totally. And that's why, again, like wherever you could get it out of a show like that, if you get just a little bit of the
Yeah.
edge in there. So yeah. And I also, again, it just falls on the actors like Michael Sinter-Nicholas, and Lisa
Yeah.
Ortiz, who played those
Mm.
two. I just love them to
Lisa.
death, and they're just
Yes.
so absurdly talented. So it was always great to see them. I mean, they were never working in the same room together while we were doing it,
Right.
but
Yeah. Man, but the result, yeah, just incredible. I love it. We're
mm.
going to take a short break, but when we come back, we are going to dive even deeper into kind of the creative process that went into directing these voice actors for this dub. So don't go anywhere.
I'm Anthony Salerno, the voice director of the 4Kids dub of the Winx Club, and you are listening to the Winx Forever podcast.
I do have like a little game for us to play.
Okay. Totally. Let's do it.
All right. Basically, I'm going to give you a line from the show, and I'm going to give you 3 options of who said it in the show, in the 4Kids dub. So this is So You Think You Know Winx 4Kids dub edition.
Oh my God. Here comes senility.
So the first one is, like they say, when in doubt, go digital. Is it A, Flora, B, Techna, or C, Musa?
I'd say Techna.
All right, Techna final answer.
Techna final answer.
That is correct. Yes, this is from season 1, episode 9, Spelled.
Technology at its best. I still don't get how you did it, but that is her. Like they say, when in doubt, go digital.
All right, here's your second one.
Okay.
Flora, why don't you take your hippy-dippy research and go save a different planet? Is it A, Stella, B, Musa, or C, Layla?
Oh, it's Stella.
Yeah.
For sure. Oh my God. You can hear her inflections.
Flora, why don't you take your hippy-dippy research and go save a different planet? That's not nice. Hey, come on, guys.
I hear Karen's inflections. Oh my God.
All right, here's your third one. You're totally conceited, totally cocky, totally boring, a waste of good oxygen. I'm sorry, but guys like you give guys a bad name, Ribbon. Is it A, Musa, B, Stella, or C, Bloom?
Oh gosh. Now, like my gut would say, well, it's Musa because she's talking to Ribbon and they're having a fight. But it sounds like Bloom would say that.
Is that your final answer?
Would Bloom be that mean though? I don't know. Gosh, I'm gonna say Musa, but I feel like it should be Bloom.
It's Bloom. It's
Bloom. See, I should have gone with that.
Yes, it is Bloom, season 1, episode 8, Day of the Rose.
Oh, okay.
Totally conceited, totally cocky, totally boring waste of good oxygen. I'm sorry, but guys like you give guys a bad name, Ribbon.
We've only got a couple more. If you plan to blow up more stuff, let us know ahead so we can bounce. Is it A, Layla, B, Musa, or C, Techna?
That's Musa.
Yes. Yeah.
Bounce.
You got it.
That was her
you
thing, bouncing.
Yeah. She was real hip with her lingo, you know?
She was.
Quite infamous. That's the word on the street. Yo, if you plan to blow up more stuff, let us know ahead so we can bounce.
All right. No way, Bloom. Musa is making a good call. Guys aren't worth it. Look at me. No guys, no problems. A, Layla, B, Flora, or C, Techna?
Flora.
Is that your final answer?
That's my final answer.
It's incorrect. It's actually Layla in season 3.
Why? Why?
Musa, maybe you should give it a little more time. No way, Bloom. Musa's making a good call. Guys aren't worth it. Look at me. No guys, no problems.
And then the last one is, only true friends would follow me into this swamp. Is it A, Bloom, B, Flora, or C, Layla?
I'm gonna say Flora.
You're right, it's Flora.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Whew.
So that was good. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming. Only true friends would follow me into this swamp.
Hey, wouldn't miss it for anything.
You got about 4 out of 6. That's not bad.
All right,
that's
not terrible.
For it being 19 years after the show aired, I mean, come on, yeah.
I can't believe it. Oh my God. Why do you keep reminding me? No. Stop reminding me.
And we are back with the original voice director of the 4Kids dub of Winx Club, Anthony Salerno, and we're going to dive even deeper into his time working on the first American English dub of the series. So, as we mentioned before the break, the 4Kids dub of Winx Club was, and still is to this day, probably the most unique and creative dub that we have of the whole, in the whole Winx Club franchise, because of the ways that 4Kids kind of took the editing liberties of putting the show and the script together. It gave it sort of this very Americanized twist to this European IP. And in my opinion, it resulted in a very fun dialogue and a story that appeals to, honestly, a larger audience. How involved were you as a voice director in adapting the script? I know that, there's a whole team of script writers, but how involved were you in kind of that process at 4Kids with Winx Club?
There's a lot of different stages of writing, as it were, with dubbing, and
Okay.
that's I've written a lot of scripts for dubs, and it's a laborious process, of like, first of all, taking the roughly translated English, which is usually just really doesn't work as a spoken
Hmm.
language in that way, and then trying to make it into just a flowing sense, and then looking at the screen and seeing that you're trying to
Mm,
match what they call the lip flap, um, which can be a crazy challenge because then
yeah.
you're coming up with different ways of like shifting around words or coming up with new words to say the same thing.
Yeah.
Um, so the writers go through that process and then they hand the script to us. So how involved was I? I was not involved in any of the actual writing or
Yeah.
the quote unquote hard adaptation.
Hmm.
But, and I'm sure this probably annoyed the writers when they're like, oh, just change what I do. But what happens when you're in there with an actor who is creating their own performance,
Yeah.
and we're dealing with like emotions and motivations and pacing of delivery on each line, that can really change how the line fits physically in the time that you have. So
Right.
um so I'd say I was involved in the adaptation in the sense that it would very often have to be adapted, either very minor in a very minor way or in a very major way, to
Right.
change the line to make it work, to make it fit both in the timing, to fit the performance, or we may have changed something in recording the day before that then
Mm.
changed that other person's line that we would have to kind of account for.
Yeah.
So I'd say, I mean, technically, that's how I'd be involved in the adaptation, in terms
Yeah.
of the hard translation from original Italian to translated English to spoken English to then the dubbed English.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There were even just slight changes, not just like names of planets or anything, that the girls were from, but also like Valtor in the original series was then changed to Baltor with a B.
Mm,
Like, was
mhm.
that like a dub, like in booth dubbing like decision, or was that maybe like a script thing?
No, that was definitely a script thing because something like
So
that
interesting.
we wouldn't change something like that
Yeah.
minute. That's probably, well, I can't speak for the writers, but
Right. Yeah.
my
Yeah.
first gut instinct would be we change that because it fit the, well, no, because really with dubbing, like their mouth opens or closes. Uh, Although that's what I liked about the Italian animation
Hmm.
here. They had a little bit more motion in their mouths to
To
kind of
work
like
with.
to work with,
Yeah.
like to kind of like create the consonants and vowels and things.
Yeah.
Um, so they may have done that to fit the animation, um, or they may have done it because they thought it sounded like something else in English, maybe some creative property that was sort of popular at the time, maybe, or I don't know.
Right.
That might have been
Yeah.
the motivation.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that one.
You were mentioning earlier the processes that you guys went through
Mhm,
in creating each character's kind of voice profile
mhm,
in the 4Kids dub, and speaking with Karen earlier in the season, the original 4Kids dub voice actor, so Stella and Myrta and Darcy and Chetta.
right,
um,
yeah.
we're talking about just the fun that you guys had, and the space that you had to play around with those and to
Mm.
find, where they should live, and to like take me through that process, and how was that for you as the director, getting to grow with those actors?
Well, something that I was gifted by the actors was this level of trust that
Mm,
they had with me. And I don't know how many people are listening to this, but there was a good group of directors that were kind of buzzing around the anime sort of VO industry at that time.
hmm.
And I don't know if this is people just blowing smoke up my rear end or what, but a lot of people would say, we really love that you kind of put in the extra effort in terms
Mm,
of like finding a performance, helping an actor find a performance within it's a very confined space that we're working within, in terms of like, you have this line that fits into this time, we have this amount of hours to get things done. And they weren't crazy with us in terms of like, if we went over, we had to rebook them. But usually we had to try to get stuff done within the time we had the actors booked. So we had that constraint of time as well. But what I think that's some actors were surprised by is that when we would start, I would kind of give them the freedom to kind of find and play with different stuff. Like, let's
Okay.
try it a different way, or let's just change the line, and do it like this instead and see what happens.
Yeah.
Or I very often really encouraged actors just to come up with their own stuff, like especially once they got comfortable with their characters, and they would say like, Stella wouldn't say that, or Techna wouldn't say that, that's just not what doesn't feel right. I would always defer to them and be like, well, then, yeah, because you know them at least as well as I do.
Yeah.
There was also, and I did listen to your podcast with Karen, and I mean, like, 'cause I just love Karen. It was just, and I haven't spoken to her in many, many years, so it was great just to hear you guys chat. There was this kind of like process of just sort of finding the characters as we went, and this kind of like free form sort of environment where we were working, but it was also like we were laughing a lot, like a
Yeah.
lot, like I mean, like we would and I think that really contributed to the energy of the show as a whole. I think most people came in there and thought, oh, cool, I'm doing a Winx Club session. Not to put down all the other shows that were going on. I mean, they had Pokemon, you had
Yeah.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles going on, a bunch of other stuff. And, so there was lots of neat things happening. But I know that people came into the Winx Club and thought, like, I'm just going to have like a sunshiny, happy time. And we're going to kind of try to make it its own thing outside of what the other stuff was at the time.
Yeah.
And that was also just the nature of the show. It allowed itself to be something different. It wasn't like
Absolutely.
basically an instruction book for a card game, which I really felt like a lot of Pokemon was, or Yu-Gi-Oh was.
Yeah.
Not to trash those shows, they were what they were, but
Yeah.
that was how they were built. This show was built around just the experience of these young girls growing up. And it was just a pure and relatable thing for everybody. In fact, I think the people who got the most short thrift on the show were the boys, because
yeah.
they were a little two-dimensional. It was like a little like they're just kind of there more or less for the girls to give the girls something to do. I know that the actors who came in and played them, all of whom were playing much larger roles. Again, they were all Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Yu-Gi-Oh. So,
Right.
they were just kind of like, okay, whatever, I'm coming here and be this goofy character. In fact, they probably thought it was more of a joke than anything else. They're like, yeah, whatever, I'm gonna go and play Sky now. I'm gonna be Brandon, whatever. And these are my buddies, so they know I'm totally joking with them. But they probably got the shortest end of the stick with the show in terms of like the overall experience and or just the payback of being in it and just kind of feeling like the sense of accomplishment with the show, because it was about the girls.
Both of the girls, yeah.
Hi, this is Anthony Salerno, the voice director of the 4Kids dub of the Winx Club. And if you're enjoying this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, follow the show on your favorite streaming platform so that you're notified when new episodes are released.
So obviously you were handed the original Italian to dub over. Did you ever get a chance to see any besides Nick dub, excluding the Nick dub? Did you ever get to see any other dubs of the show while you were working on it?
There was one other dub, and maybe that was what you referenced, the Canadian thing.
Yeah,
It was one and I think it was done before we did ours.
Interesting.
I think it was. There was something that I saw that had already been done. It was just one episode. Or at least I saw one episode, and I just thought it was really flat. I think it was my and I was just so hyper aware of that in general with anime dubbing or animation. voiceover in general was like trying not to let things be flat.
Yeah.
But again, this was many, many years, so I might not be remembering it, but I'm pretty sure that, once we started dubbing, nobody else was dubbing our show.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it had to have
Yeah.
been beforehand. I'm pretty sure that's what it was. Like we saw a
Yeah.
dub of the first episode, and whatever. I knew the actors that we had. I knew the kind of the corral of incredibly talented people, and I just saw that and I was like, oh my God, we can blow that out of the water. At least we tried. I know that, years later down the road, I mean, I managed to hunt down, it was hard to find the 4Kids dub on YouTube. It's like very hard to find. But and I watched it, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, well, all right. Like, some of it was like a little sloppier than I thought maybe it was, but the energy was like so super in it, and I was like, oh, this is just such a sweet experience. But yeah, so I think I saw that other dub just before we started.
Winx Club went on to produce, after season 3 in Italy, they produced 5 more seasons, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No one likes to talk about 8. It's fine.
Oh, really?
but
just like Game of Thrones, basically.
Yeah. Well, we don't. Yes, we don't. But what happened was, after season 3, there was this big cliffhanger of like Bloom is ready to like meet her, like to like go find her parents, because she finds out that they're not dead. They're actually still alive somewhere. They're just imprisoned. It is. And then and then in Italy they produced this whole CGI film called The Secret of the Lost Kingdom. I'm so happy to share this with you, by the way.
I love this information.
The Secret of the Lost Kingdom follows Bloom and her friends graduating from college, and except for Bloom, because she never earned her full Enchantix because she couldn't, because Enchantix involved saving someone from your home planet. Well, she's the only one from Sparks, Domino, whatever.
Right.
So because of that, she like didn't fully graduate from Althea. She goes back home to Earth, and then her friends are like, no, let's go find your family. And so they embark on this whole journey. They bring her dead planet back to life, and it's so fun.
Wow.
That was originally supposed to be the original ending of Winx Club, was that movie.
Oh,
like gosh. Just a perfect little cap to it.
Right.
But then money. So
yeah, exactly. No, we're never going to end it. Are you kidding?
Right.
No.
So then we got season 4, and then we got the Nick dub, and then we got seasons 5 through 8, and it's just like, it's like you said, like just leave it alone. Like let's just like stop while we're ahead.
Yeah, it's just I remember during one of the years working at 4Kids, Batman Beyond got canceled. And everyone was like, what do you mean? Why would a Batman show get canceled? And
right.
we just heard, well, the toys aren't selling as much as they wanted it to. So they just canceled the whole show. So, I mean, if Winx is selling enough toys or product that it justifies this, what they see as basically a 20-minute commercial to continue for year after year, they'll do it, So like reviving it again and again and again is worth it for them.
Yeah.
Which, is a bummer. Because it's originally created as this, however Ingenio feels about, what 4Kids did.
Yeah.
It was still like part of the original arc of what the story was supposed to be that he was telling. And then to see it kind of like, almost like, an undead corpse, we're going to lift it up. We're going to keep it going. Not to trash whatever's out there now. And I'm not trashing the work of all the actors and directors that work on it.
Right.
They're fine, wonderful people, the animators, everybody. It's more just the concept and the idea behind like, not letting something just complete and then move on, make something else, let it live.
Let it live.
Let it live.
But I bring all of that up to say, I get this question a lot, and I actually have a listener that sent a voice message in from Australia who grew up with the 4Kids dub. Trisha sent us a message and asked how I think, or how we think that if 4Kids dub had kept the licensing for seasons 4 on, how it would have changed the trajectory of Winx Club as an IP, and
Oh
I
man.
don't know. Like
Oh
I'm
man.
curious. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like if you could have continued with Winx Club.
Well, it actually gives me the chills a little bit. It gives me the chills. I'm having it right now, and I'm not exaggerating.
Uh-huh.
Um, if I only because just recently I've been kind of thinking about how much I miss working in that environment. The
Yeah.
work I do now is very different. Not very different, but
Mhm.
actually no, it is very different. And I miss that experience.
Mhm.
Uh, well, first of all, if we were allowed to continue, we were right on the cusp of social media. It would have,
Mhm.
if we had gotten far enough that we landed on Facebook, and that would have just, I think, would have jettisoned it into
Oh yeah.
even a greater form. I think it would have been amazing for all of those actors, to be quite honestly, to have that steady job, or at least steady enough
Mhm.
during a season.
Yeah.
I think it would have helped for kids stay afloat. But I'm saying all of this knowing
Mhm.
that I have no clue what was going on behind closed doors of
Yeah.
the finances and the contractual arrangements and all the other
Oh
baloney that
yeah.
was going on with the company as a whole. I mean, just look at Pokemon, for example, all of the hands that have been in Pokemon over
Oh
two
yeah.
decades. The show's still going on, but whether or not the actual people who created it at the start, not really. I mean, I know that
Right.
Lisa Ortiz is directing the show, which I think is
Yeah.
amazing and wonderful. She's the perfect person for it. And she does an incredible job. But other than that, I mean, you have a handful of the original actors, but
Mhm.
not really, and that's it. And so Winx Club, I feel like, I mean, first, I mean, I would hope that Four Kids would have just kept going long enough that, first of all, I could have stayed and directed the show. We could
Yeah.
have like followed through with some of those storylines, as you mentioned
Mhm.
now, telling me like that's kind of like the intended completion of that arc. It would have been
Mhm.
so beautiful to be able to follow that through in a couple more seasons. Um, and just the, selfishly, the fun that I had dubbing that show, showing up to quote unquote work.
Yeah.
And it was all in hindsight. I look back now and I'm like, oh my God, what a dream that was,
Mm.
to have that as a
Yeah.
job, to be paid to do that, to show up and, you know, uh, help performers find goofy, amazing, fun, earnest, silly, hilarious, dark performances, all to entertain, hundreds of thousands and maybe even millions of kids around the
Yeah.
world. Was I mean, like, you do that and you're like, okay, I feel good about myself. I think we're doing okay.
Yeah.
So to be able to have done that more fully, more even in a deeper way,
Mhm.
uh, I would jump at that in a heartbeat. I wish that could have happened. I think it would have been amazing for the show. And like I said,
Mhm.
we may have been able to leapfrog long enough to get the social media,
Yeah.
and then it could have just lived its own life.
Absolutely. I agree. And I think too from a marketing standpoint, just the integrative marketing plans that 4Kids would roll out for their IPs are just incredible. Like for their licensed, properties that they had. I mean, 4Kids like plan for Winx Club was, I mean, my first my first ever interaction with it was an ad at my dentist.
Oh my
Like,
God.
don't
Wow.
like a children's dentist, like, don't tell me, like, they didn't have a
Yeah.
plan because
Oh
they
yeah.
had a plan.
Oh yeah.
Like, it was, I mean, from the advertising to the online, like, even though, social media was not what it is today, back then, from the online presence to the advertising to even the merchandising of the toys, like, it was just Winx Club was everywhere,
Oh
2004,
yeah.
2005, 2006, like, it was, coming into Walmart and seeing Winx Club toys, and it's
I
just like,
remember when Liza Kaplan got her first Bloom doll, and she was just like on another planet. She was like holding this thing. She's like, "Oh my God, like that's me." And I was giddy for them too, just like seeing
yeah,
these characters. I mean, in some ways it seems so shallow. You're like, "Oh, it's a toy. Come on."
right.
But
No.
knowing, growing up as we all did, and
Mhm.
knowing what like a toy or a doll or an action figure can mean to your imaginary life, that really
Yeah.
starts to carve your own sense of self. These are like totems. They're not just toys, they're totems that we kind of
Yeah.
like just shape our minds and hopes and joys around. And Winx Club was pretty much like the epitome of joy. I mean, it was, just look at the background you have there. I mean, it's sparkle motion straight up. Like it's just,
Yeah.
it's such happiness. And that's probably another reason why I just miss that so much.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we just had so much fun. It was such a joy.
I so appreciate the time and the attention to detail and just the joy and passion that you guys poured into this dub, because like I said, for me and so many others, it is a treasure, and it is what has been with us since we were 9 years old. So it really does mean the world to me that you took the time to be on my show today. Thank you so much. Do you have anything that you would a final word that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Oh, well, I guess maybe just go back to what I was saying earlier about holding on to that joy that this show both reminds you of and brings back into your life whenever you talk about it, like with your other friends and the other fans, the other YouTubers, and just focusing on like what the overall message of the show was essentially, just being there for your friends and also just kind of like withstanding when things get really hard, knowing that, the longer you stay, the better it'll get eventually. But overall, just kind of like staying in that happiness, staying in that joy, because, life is life. Things are going to be up and down. It's going to happen. Shit's going to happen. You're going to get bummed out. You're going to get sad. But the Winx Club, both, in an esoteric kind of way, but also for me in a career way, was like a beautiful way to kind of conclude things. I couldn't be happier to have worked on that show. It is my favorite voiceover work I've ever done, my favorite cast I've ever worked with. I learned more from them than I probably ever shared with them. I got to be involved in their lives also in personal ways, as friends, as artists in other ways, working on other projects with them. So I would say the takeaway is, first of all, just, this is so cliche, but, follow your bliss, as Joseph Campbell says, follow your bliss. In terms of the Winx Club, follow your joy, follow your magics, follow whatever it is. It's just stay in the joy. That's what would be my message to everybody.
That's a good word. I love it. Thank you so much, Anthony, for your time. I so appreciate it, and thank you for this incredible dub that you got to work on.
Pleasure. Thank you, Lola. It's been an absolute blast going back to the past.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for listening. Until next time, I am Lola Valentine.
And I am Anthony Salerno.
There we go. And this is the Winx Forever podcast. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of the Winx Forever podcast, be sure to follow or subscribe to the show on your preferred streaming platform to be notified when new episodes drop. Join in on the conversation when you follow @WinxForeverPodcast on social media. The theme for the Winx Forever podcast is the song She Makes Magic by Big Wild.